All right. So yes, welcome to the PTCAS 101 presentation, presented by me and Andrew. Um, this is the table of contents, some of the things you're gonna expect out of this presentation. If you ever want to refer back to this presentation, we are going to be sending it out. So these are like the slide numbers if you just want quick access there. And then hopefully you guys know us by now, but I just want to do another quick introduction. So Andrew has already applied. He applied last cycle and he's been accepted. So can you just tell them like how many schools you applied for, which one you got into?
I applied for 8 schools. Don't do that. It was left a big hole in my pocket. But I got into my top school, which was really cool, UTSA. Um, and what was the other one? Other question?
Um, just how many you applied
I
to.
applied to 8, got interviews for 6, got accepted into 4. Quick numbers. Yeah, it cost me like 1,300. That's why I'm telling you, don't do that many schools. Y'all are a lot more qualified than you think. Yeah.
Yeah. Question.
How many schools? Like 3 or 4.
The
Yeah.
average is like 5 to 6, and we're going to cover that a little later on. So,
Yeah.
and then for me, I have not applied yet, but I'm applying this cycle, and I have been very proactive in starting that process. So I've already written my personal statement, and I got that reviewed by Miss Bravo, which I'm going to talk about. I've got 2 rec letters already. So my goal, I'm very ambitious. I'm trying to submit early, ideally like 1 or 2 weeks after it opens, but obviously that's very ambitious. You do not have to try that hard. If you submit by like July, that is still considered like an early application. So that's a good goal. And then here's just 2 inspirational quotes to start us off. One by Theodore Roosevelt, believe you can, and you're halfway there. So the fact that you guys are here putting on that extra effort to learn about the application process, that's a very good indicator that you have better odds than other people that are not here, or maybe are at different schools and don't have this resource. So be proud of yourself for that. And then another one, nobody has it all figured out, but they just get better at handling uncertainty. And this actually by Chris Williamson, which I'm curious. Has anyone listened to the podcast Modern Wisdom by Chris Williamson? Raise your hand. Okay, nice. I like to listen to that podcast, so that's where I got that from. But anyways, so this is the Anatomy of PTCAS. It opens June 15th for this cycle, this upcoming cycle. And it's always right around that date. So if you're applying in a couple years, you can expect it to be either June 15th, possibly like 16th or 17th, just depending on if it falls on a weekend, because I think they typically do that during weekdays. And then actually, the main goal, there's like an actual step that I want each of you to take away from this presentation if you haven't already done it already, but that is to create your own PTCAS account, because you can do that whenever. That's what this link here at the bottom is, but it's also easy to just search up the website and find it there. But go ahead and create your account, and then you can go look through all of what we're going to be showing you today and look for yourself. And that answers a lot of questions you may have. And you can also like start applications for all the schools you want to see, and you don't have to pay for anything unless you submit, which you most likely won't be. So that's actually where I got a lot of information from this presentation for this presentation. And it's a great way to answer like any questions you might have. Now, this is what it looks like once you actually get into PTCAS. So there's 4 main sections that you have to complete. And so like this is from mine. You can see I've already completed some of it. Yeah. But then this is actually a very important slide because this is what will save if you, let's say you start even now before the application cycle opens. If you do all this stuff on the left, that will stay after June 15th, whereas all this stuff on the right is going to get deleted. So that's the stuff you wouldn't want to start early because it would get deleted. And you can see there's actually a lot that gets saved. So you can submit transcripts early, which is what I plan on doing. Your GRE scores, those will save, and all this other stuff. Whereas the main thing that you have to wait to start is going to be like the school specific essays, like those shorter essays. You can actually do the personal statement early because that prompt has already been released. And then reference letters, you can't request those until after June 15th. Otherwise, those will get deleted. And then other program specific information. This is the first section, just the personal information, pretty basic. There's nothing really to cover here. This is just what you can expect. Now, this next section, academic history. This is where you enter the colleges you attended, which is going to include those if you took any community college classes or dual credit classes, maybe in high school, like on-ramps. I know I have one class there. And then it's where you're going to enter your transcript. So you'll have a minimum of one from A&M, and then you also have to submit transcripts for same thing, all those community colleges you went to or took a class at. And then also where you submit GRE scores, AP scores. Did you have to submit AP scores? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then CLEP exams. I took those for my histories. That's just a course level examination preparation, something like that. It's how you just test out of a class. So I did that for my histories, and that was fairly easy. I would recommend that.
Wait, before you change. Okay. So you're gonna have to enter like your transcript. They're gonna give you like a big like how to do it on the actual website. But you want to enter it exactly. So if your transcript's in all caps, enter it in all caps exactly how it's spelled out and everything like that. There is a service that they charge. I think it's like $15 a transcript. You've seen it? Yeah. I didn't do that because I was already spending a lot of money, like y'all know. But I've also heard of horror stories where people have used the service and then they get it wrong because it's being done by another person. And so then their application doesn't get submitted when they want it to. I would say save the money, just get it done now, like when you have free time on the weekend or something. It's just busy work, really. But yeah, it'll save you money and you get to know like it's done right.
This is actually, we're going to cover transcripts in more detail.
Yeah.
They cost about $5 to $20 per transcript. I was looking at A&M's transcript service, and it's like a base fee of $10. And then there's like, they always throw in these extra fees depending on like if you're submitting it virtually versus like on paper and whatnot. And this is something, if you don't start this early, at the very least, you want to start it right when the application cycle starts, because it can take several weeks to actually send the transcripts, especially if it has to be sent through mail, which I know some of those community colleges, like Western Texas maybe, or something like that, they still have it where you have to send it on paper, which is like from the 1800s. But anyways, you want to send those early. It's either sent through National Student Clearinghouse or Parchment. If you just go through Howdy, you can find a link there for A&M. It's really simple. And then you do also, on top of that, on top of sending your transcripts, you have to manually enter them, like Andrew was talking about it. And it's a very tedious process, but you want to complete that early because it does take time to get verified. And then there's always YouTube videos you can find that will help if you are confused. And then at the bottom of what Andrew was talking about is that professional transcript entry service. When you click on transcripts in PTCAS, the first page that will pop up, but I would definitely not recommend it. It's kind of they're just preying on your stress levels. It's going to cost anywhere between 85 and 160, which is a lot for something that is going to take you maybe 2 hours to do. So just put in the time, knock it out. And like Andrew said, there have even been stories of this service still getting things wrong and then delaying your submission. So I would not recommend it. Now onto the GRE. It's basically the SAT, but for grad school. So you can take it either at home via a lockdown browser or at an in-person testing center, which is what I did. And just a quick note, there's like different types of tests. There's like the general test, and there's like a psychology major one, specific one, and something else. We just take the general one. Pretty simple. But The test lasts for 2 hours, which we are very lucky because a couple of years ago, it actually was 4 hours long and they basically cut it in half. So I'm glad that they did that. It costs $220, which is a lot. That's definitely why you want to study for it and only have to take it once, because otherwise you're gonna have to pay another 220 to retake it. And the scores are good for up to 5 years. So even if you're a freshman, if you can take it now and it will still be good by the time you apply, unless you're taking like 3 gap years or something like that. Um, Personally, I would recommend taking it over the summer. That's what I did, or even winter break, just so that you have time to study for it. If you try and schedule it like during the semester and study on top of all your classes, it's just going to stack up, and you're not going to have time for it. Um, Now, in terms of sending your scores, this pro tip right here, at the end of your test, it's going to give you the option after you see your scores, which is nice. You have the option to send your scores to 4 schools for free. And I would absolutely take advantage of this because that's going to save you $160 in the long run. All you have to do is just come in prepared with like a good idea of 4 schools that you're most likely going to apply to that require the GRE. So there are a couple schools that don't require the GRE. I listed 5 right here in Texas: UNT, UT El Paso, University Mary Hardin Baylor, UT Galveston, and then St. Augustine. But quick asterisk on St. Augustine is that you do have to have a 3.6 GPA or higher to actually be exempt from it. But all that being said is that, let's say you're like, for me, I want to apply to UNT. They don't require the GRE, so I actually didn't have to send my score to them at all. And so I was able to use one of those 4 free school score reports for like a different school. So I came in like with my top 5 schools, and then UNT didn't have a GRE, so then I was able to send it to the other 4. And so hopefully I won't have to pay any extra to send more scores. But each additional one, say you're applying to, just after the 4 free score reports, each additional one is $40 extra. So that really adds up. This is just a breakdown of the GRE. So there's 3 sections: the verbal reasoning, quantitative reasoning, which is just math, and then analytical writing, so essay. I'm not going to go through all the specifics here, but there's basically 2 sections for each. Certain number of questions, certain amount of time. The second section is dependent on the difficulty of it, is dependent on how you did in the first. So you actually want it to get harder because that means that you got a lot of the questions right in the first section. And it's ranged from 130 to 170. And typically what all the PT schools tell us is just try to get a 150 on each. So you want a combined score of 300. And that's really all they're looking for. There's not really, try to get higher than that, but you don't have to like stress about getting a max of like 340 or anything like that.
Let me give you all my experience on GRE.
Yeah.
So I took the GRE, should have studied for it. I didn't study for it. A lot of things you're going to hear me say, like, don't follow what I did, right? But I got a 299 because I didn't study for my GRE, which is like 1 point under 300 is what they want you to have. I got a 4 on the writing, which is fine. But I was like, oh, shoot, I just spent $220 on this. I don't want to do it again. So I emailed all the schools, right? I emailed like all 8 of them, and I was like, hey, do I have to take this again or am I good? Right? And they're like, don't worry about it. You're fine. It really is just like a check mark, 299, 300, who really cares, right? They didn't say that verbatim, but that's basically what they said. So don't stress about it too much. If you're going to put time into like doing something, do it into your personal statement or your short answer questions when the application does come out. But don't worry about it too much. Study for it, at least like maybe 2 weeks at least. But if you get like a 300, 301, like don't worry about it. If you get higher than that, it's not going to do anything but help you. You know what I mean? So don't stress too much about it.
Yeah. And then just real quickly, the analytical writing section, that's just a 30-minute long essay. It's like a pretty simple prompt, but it's scored from 0 to 6 in half-point increments. And all the schools say just try to get a 4 on this, and then you're good. But then this note at the bottom, I don't know if we've had any presenters this semester say this, but definitely in the past, several of them have said that the GRE is not very indicative of your actual ability to do well in PT school. So a lot of them, it's not like really their highest priority. And actually, a lot of them are trying to shift away from even requiring it. That's why like the 5 schools have already gotten rid of the requirement because they know it's not that important. So that being said, like try to meet the minimum 300. And if that's really all you need to do, if you get like a 299 or like 298, that's also fine. Like I wouldn't stress about that.
If you get like a 230, then like I'll take it again. No, it's actually study right.
Yeah. And then here are some resources. You can either go the free route, which is what I did. And honestly, I would recommend because there's a lot of great resources, or you can go the paid route where you typically just buy like a textbook and spend some time studying that. But if you want to go the free route, there's 2 apps by Magoosh. One just has like a bunch of videos you can watch, some practice questions, and whatnot. And then the other one is just a vocab app. Just helps you study vocab. There's like, I want to say there's like a list of like 1,000 words they want you to learn for the verbal section, which is ridiculous.
It's like words you'll never use.
Yeah. It's like a lot of words you've never seen before and never will again. So it's kind of annoying because then for me, I did study the vocab a decent amount. And then on the actual test, it's like maybe I saw like 3 or 4 words that I actually like learned from studying. And it's like, did it really help me? Like, was it really worth my time? I don't know. That's debatable. But you can take a look through those apps. There's also just for everything, there's great YouTube videos you can watch that can walk you through the test pretty much. If you just do like a Google search for like practice tests, well, actually, one, if you go through ETS, I want to say they have 2 practice tests you can take for free. One of them, I don't think it'll give you a score, but then one of them will. And so those are good ways to sort of test yourself. I would maybe do a lot of your studying before you take the scored one, but then take that before you take your actual test because that'll let you know like what range you're estimated to score in. And then if you just do a simple Google search for practice questions, you can find some other websites that'll have some you can do for free. And then you'll probably get to a point where they want you to like create an account and whatnot, but you can just skip that and find a new website at that point. And then also there's some good Reddit threads out there. If you just look up GRE study tips, there's like, I want to say there's at least 2 that listed like a ton of things that people who scored like really high in what they did. So something to look into. And then I didn't use any of these paid resources, but these are some that I found that looked that they were on the cheaper side and so might actually be worth it. If that's more your style. You got a book with 20 full practice tests, which is a lot, but what you said you didn't study really at all.
I didn't study at all. I maybe studied like a day. I didn't study math because I'm like pretty good at math. Not to toot my own horn, right? But I did get, it's called Greg Matt. If y'all have heard of Greg Matt, he's like the best at vocab and like his writing, he tells you exactly what they want. Got me a 4, super easy. I think the prompt was like, if you were what did Michael Jordan have impact on the youth or something like that. Some people get questions about like historical figures. I got a question about Michael Jordan, so it was good. But he gives you like this vocab mountain. It's like $10 a month, super good, and just runs you through all those like words that you're gonna see. So that helped me with my vocab. So that's all the studying I did.
And so I don't think I mentioned this before we move on, but GRE, so you can take this like the summer after your freshman year if you're really ambitious. I took it the summer after my sophomore year. Some people wait till, like the same summer that the application opens, which that's just another thing that's gonna stack up. If you can do that, take it proactively. That's what I would recommend, just so you don't have to stress about it.
Yeah. Any questions? Does anybody have any questions so far? We're just kind of yapping at you, but no?
We're also gonna have a lot of time at the end for
Yeah.
questions. I think this is moving a little faster than I maybe even expected. So next section is supporting information. This has where you're going to enter in your shadowing hours, experiences, which is kind of like your extracurriculars, achievements, which might be like if you're on the dean's list or have gotten different achievements throughout your time at A&M, licenses and certifications. If you went to the Stop the Bleed workshop earlier this semester, you can enter that in there. And then the personal statement essay. So first, shadowing. You want to have a variety of settings rather than just an abundance of hours. That's what all the presenters come in and tell us. They would much rather you have 3 settings with 100 hours versus 1 setting with 500 hours. And typically, when you see people with like 500 plus hours, that's most likely because they had a tech job, which is also a great thing to have. But it's not really a ton of diversity in the settings necessarily. So just something to think about. When we talk about the actual requirements, like the minimum, which you want to don't just reach the minimum, do a little more than that. But one of like the strictest ones in Texas I've seen is from TWU. They require 80 hours minimum with 40 hours being from 2 separate PTs, 40 hours each. And then along with that, is going to be 20 hours of inpatient, which most schools don't actually require inpatient. They just like highly recommend it. But that is one where, assuming that they are strict about that, you actually will have to have inpatient hours in order to apply. And then I saw there's some out-of-state schools and also Army Baylor that have a minimum requirement of 100. But that's basically what I would recommend is getting anywhere between 100 and 200 hours, ideally between at least 3 different settings. I think that's plenty. You can get a lot of good experiences out of that. That's where I'm currently at. I think I'm just above 100. And then I do have probably about 40 more I'm going to get during May. I was able to secure some inpatient shadowing. And in my opinion, I've done all of my shadowing over the summer or winter break. And that just makes it easier because you obviously have more time, most likely, unless you're just super busy over the summer. But plenty of people do it during the semester, typically like at a lighter frequency, just like once a week, maybe for 3 hours. And that works great too. It's just up to you. Did you do your shadowing?
I did mine throughout the semester. So I didn't realize I wanted to be a PT until like the beginning of my junior year, which I'll tell more about my story later on, but I did not have like anything prepared. And so I had to like, I don't even know how I got my shadow. I got like maybe 120 hours by the time I applied, 2 different settings, which wasn't the greatest, but it got me in. So I just emailed as much as I could and did them throughout the year. And then, yeah, pretty much what I did.
So it is definitely much harder to get inpatient shadowing than outpatient, which I'm going to talk about how you get shadowing in just a couple slides here. But for that reason, try to start applying to inpatient shadowing early if possible. Like I said, I was just able to secure mine like a couple weeks ago. And it's definitely like for most hospitals, you actually have to apply. Like I know for St. Joseph's, I applied, which you shadow there. But for them, for St. Joseph's, which is here in College Station, they want you to have experience in the outpatient. They give preference to people who have experience in the outpatient shadowing. And so that's why I think I applied and just probably didn't even get considered really. And you also have to get like a rec letter for that. That one was just a shorter one. It was like 1 to 2 paragraphs, but it's still an extra barrier. But it is easier if you go to like a skilled nursing facility or something like that.
Yeah.
It's typically easier to get some shadowing there. They will probably still do a background check on you. Might also ask for your immunization record. So it's just something to think about. But typically you seek out shadowing opportunities, either just emailing places, clinics, or call them on the phone. Or if you want, you can also show up in person. and ask that way. A lot of the times when you email clinics, we'll get to you in a second. When you email clinics, you just won't get a response, which sucks. It's really annoying, but you just got to keep reaching out to more places. Sometimes, like if you go in person, you'll probably talk to the person at the front desk, and maybe they'll just give you another email to contact. So it's not always like an instantaneous, like, yeah, you can do it. But then also like some places I emailed, they're super responsive. They're like, oh yeah, we can totally do that. And then typically they just ask you to set up your own schedule, say how many times you want to come a week, for how long. I would recommend like 3 or 4 hour blocks. I found the 4 hour blocks to be a little long, but just like 1 to 3 times per week, depending on how much time you have. If it's during the summer, like I would do 3 times a week, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, for like 3 or 4 hours, and then really probably like 6 weeks of shadowing, and you'll have plenty, and you should have developed a good relationship with the physical therapist at that point. In terms of once you actually find a place to shadow, you go in, you want to dress business casual or at least fairly professional. If they tell you otherwise, then you can follow that.
Some places use scrubs.
Yeah.
I went to scrubs in online.
Even outpatient place or just inpatient?
Both. Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
But your main goal here should be to establish a connection with the, oh, sorry, I forgot about your question. Yes. So the question was, is a skilled nursing facility considered inpatient? Yes. I don't fully understand exactly what it is, but typically it's like a rehab center where, yeah, it's anywhere that the patients stay overnight. So that there's also like acute care, which I think is in a hospital. There's a couple different terms that you kind of need to learn. about what-
On the actual application, they'll like have like outpatient, inpatient, and they'll have different like little check marks you put on, and you put the hours you've been in, and it calculates it at the bottom. Yeah. Yeah.
But as I was saying, your main goal of shadowing should be to establish a connection with the PT because they're going to be the people you're reaching out to for letters of recommendation. But it's also great to have that connection because you can always ask them questions you have, and things like that. And that's asking good questions is what makes the experience worthwhile. I know if you haven't done any shadowing yet, you'll learn it's not the most enjoyable experience. I mean, it's just pretty boring because you're just sitting there watching the PT do their job and not really doing much. Like maybe if you want to bring a journal, you can to write down some of the notable observations, which could be helpful for when you're writing your personal statement because you have to write about your experiences with shadowing, or also preparing for interviews. A lot of times they'll ask you like, what was your shadowing experience like, and things like that. But if you can ask good questions, like that makes it more engaging, makes the time go by faster, and you also get more out of it. And then this sheet here on the left, I would definitely well, first of all, if you look at the image in the bottom right, that shows you actually on PTCAS, it gives you 3 options. So it asks, do you want to have your PT observation hours verified? I would definitely say yes. Some schools might even require you have it verified, but it's definitely it's easy to do. So you've got 3 options. It's you send your you actually basically reach out to all your PTs and have them verify it, or you can upload a signed form, which is what this is here on the left, because the PT's already signed that. Or you can just say, I'm not going to have it verified.
The way I did mine, most of them, people just want you to email it so they can just like sign it electronically. It's super easy for them, right? It's super easy for you. I did have one, I think it was Central Texas, right? Did some shadowing there, and they had like a physical paper. So they emailed me the paper, and you had to upload the paper because I didn't use that left form right there. I just uploaded like the little sign your name, there's how many hours you did today, is the date. Right, the one that you normally have. I uploaded that, and then I was like, hey, can y'all sign this at the bottom? Just to like confirm I was here. And that worked perfectly fine. So you could go that way, but you don't have to go that way.
Okay, I'm actually going to pause the presentation right here and fix the brightness. So
Most of y'all, but if you have 500 hours with 3 settings and then 1 setting, they're gonna take it. You know what I mean?
all right, we're back. So a little more on this sheet. This is what I've used. And basically, it's just a simple way to get your hours verified. What you do, you just print it out, and then on your last day of your shadowing experience, you can bring this to your PT and just have them sign it. And then you also want to make sure you have a good contact info. Sometimes if you get like their email that's associated with the clinic, well, let's say by the time you apply, they've moved to a different clinic, they might not have that email anymore. So you want to, ideally, you can either get like their personal phone number or just personal email. And that makes sure that you can still contact them by the time you're actually applying. But I have this form. It's linked there in the bottom left. So I've tried to incorporate some resources throughout this presentation that you can find if you reference this presentation later on. You should be able to go and find those resources pretty easily. But like Andrew was saying, you don't have to use this form. This is just something I found a while back. I think it's actually on our PT Society website where I found it. But it looks really clean. It's easy to check off the different specialty areas. Yes, questions?
No. Some of them will have forms, some of them online. It's different for each PT. Yes.
But so, like one of these 3 options, you don't have to just stick with one the whole time.
No. But I would say verify all your hours, because if you're a PT school and this person's like, oh, this person has 500 hours, but they're not verified, they're not gonna take that. They're not gonna take that as like real. So verify all your hours. Doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Any other questions about shadowing? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I uploaded. Yeah. They'll take it. Yeah. 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 I think the way I remember it, you put in how many hours you put, right? So like PTCAS will have like basically same type of sheet as this. If you did sports, right? Let's say you had 100 hours at sports, you'll check off sports, put 100 hours, and PTCAS will send that form to them, and all they'll have to do is sign it if it's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's going to be this top option here is send my PT hours to my PT for verification. I think that's what you would.
And then what you said, Jesse, right? The sign form, if they've already signed it, that's the one you'll pick.
All right. And then next in this supporting information section, it's just 3 fairly simple ones. You've got your experiences, which is going to include employment, extracurricular activities, especially if you're in leadership. Definitely want to put that. And I'm curious, what do you think? Like, say, like you did intramurals. Obviously, that's not like super notable, but would you still include that under here?
Bro, I included everything, bro. Like everything I did, I was like, you're gonna know I was busy, right? I did intramurals, I did like orgs, work, volunteer stuff. But they want to see that you're not just like an academic person, because like as a PT, you want to be personable. And if you're just always your face is in the books, like they're not gonna it's gonna show like, oh, this person actually cares about his health because he's doing intramurals, you know? It's actually sociable. So I put everything on there.
Yeah, my take is that, if you've done it, why not put it on there? Like, they're probably not going to discredit you for putting too many things on there. Like, I can't really imagine that. So probably just better to be safe than sorry and include it. If you have research, that's great. You want to put that on there. And then same thing, any volunteering you've done. Hopefully you've done some through PT Society. You could add
Big event. Big event looks really good.
Yeah, big event. Definitely big event. Yeah, questions?
Actually, I would put it under research. Research looks really good. And supervised project's an easy one.
Yeah. Did you end up? Yeah, it was for the student fighter project. What does that go under?
You said what?
Yeah, Dr. Kennedy.
Yeah.
Did you present at Student Research Week?
We made a poster, so like without search, like, because that'd be separate first one.
I put it under research. I put it under research.
Yeah, I know on my resume I added the student fighter project. Even though it's not like, like official research necessarily, but definitely it counts as like a student research project. But then I also presented at Student Research Week, so maybe that makes it a little more official. But I think you could definitely add it because we had poster night.
If they not a lot of undergrads have like experience with the poster. So but you do. So yeah.
That's another thing. If you're not a junior yet, you're a little younger, I would definitely recommend taking Kines 307, which is lifespan motor development, with Dr. Kennedy, specifically the in-person section, because that is what you might have heard about the Student Fighter Project, where you get to work with Parkinson's patients at a local Rocksteady Boxing. It's like a boxing gym. Super cool experience. Looks great for your PT application. It's probably like my most enjoyable class I've taken so far. And I was able to get a rec letter out of Dr. Kennedy, although she's super busy, so it might not be the best idea. But
one thing I would say, don't put anything from high school. Like it's too late for high school now. Just keep it in college. Unless you like won like a gold medal in like gymnastics or something, but most likely none of us did that.
so then on to achievements. You got awards, honors, and scholarships. If you have them, great. Definitely want to add them. But if you don't have anything, or like I think I maybe have one thing for this category, that's fine too. Like it's not necessarily a huge section. And then same thing for licenses and certifications. If you want to go out of your way and get some of these, it will help you a little bit, probably not a ton, but if you just want to get that extra boost, you can. Right now, I just have Stop the Bleed, but I might try and get one of these.
It will help you.
Probably.
If it comes down to it, they're gonna pick the person with certifications rather than the person without it. You know what I mean? So anything that you can get, it'll help you out.
So did you add your
I added my
personal training?
personal training certification on there, EKG technician certification, CMA, all the certifications I had.
Dang.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, and then personal statement. So this is the prompt for this cycle. They basically reuse the same prompt every year. Although this year's actually did seem a slightly different, like fairly different, but it's basically conceptually the same. And it's arguably like the most important part of your application. If you remember like applying for undergrad, this is like the main essay you write where the schools really get to know you, and not just like your academics and whatnot. It has a maximum character count of 4,500 characters, which is like roughly 675 words, which is just over like one page, single spaced.
Characters, not words. I did 4,500 words my first one.
Oh, actually,
It's so bad.
oh my
But
God.
it crunched down to a really good essay. So
Just some additional tips. You probably want to go in the 4 to 5, maybe 6 paragraphs. And you really, you want to avoid generic statements and actually provide specific experiences, which is like same for like when you're interviewing, you actually want to provide specific experiences to showcase your abilities. And the same thing, you want to provide a variety of different experiences to show that you're well-rounded. So I provided like an example outline here on the right. You have like first paragraph is going to be your hook or like intro. And then like 2 through 4 really can be like any order, but it's probably going to consist of maybe like one story from shadowing. If you have like a leadership experience, you could talk about one paragraph on that. And same thing if you have research, or like I had one paragraph where I talked about the student fighter project and working with the Parkinson's patients. And then your 5th paragraph, or maybe 6th, or however you want to do it, probably a good idea to talk about your especially with this year's prompt. Talk about your future goals in the profession. I talked about how I want to be hopefully like a travel PT, and then maybe eventually become like a clinic director once I like settle down. Um, but a big tip for each of these paragraphs is you want to tie it into physical therapy, like typically like your closing statement. Because typically you'll provide like one of your own personal experiences. Um, and then you just tie it back into physical therapy at the end.
Yeah. Let me first of all, if any of y'all want a sample essay, I'll send you my essay. I don't really care. Just so y'all can have it and see like what an essay looks like, right? But I didn't go through all those different experiences. I used one experience and used three. I also had a different prompt. So but I used the same experience and three different qualities of that experience. So you can do it however you want, but rewording that to like follow PT is what they want to see. And then second tip, use imagery. Because when you're reading a book and then it says David went to the store, you're gonna be like, okay. But if someone's like, as David walked through the street, right, and he looked left, he saw the store. You want to have them like actually reading it and like feeling what you're feeling. You know what I mean? So just put your emotions into the essay and they'll receive that emotions and it'll make you stand out.
So another tip, well, you definitely don't want to have AI write your essay. It needs to be your own writing. But I did use it for like, providing an outline when I was starting out because I didn't really know what direction to head in. And then you could also use it for just like small revisions here or there, checking grammar, things like that, just to help your writing improve. But then also we have great resources here at the university. Um, First one I'll talk about is just University Writing Center. You could just send them your paper and give you feedback, good feedback there, which that's what the link is here at the bottom. And then also, well, I just did this like last week. You can schedule a meeting with our pre-PT advisor, Miss Bravo Anez, and schedule like a 30-minute appointment with her, either in person or on Zoom, and then she'll give you feedback there. And that was definitely helpful. She gave me some good feedback. And you can also just during that meeting ask her about anything PT related question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's an online one. I use the writing center like every like 3 days, right? I like sent it. You could send a PDF to them. They'll like respond like within a day. And so I sent it maybe like 7 times. I was like, please just fix anything, like make it better. And then when they were like, you're good, chill out, I finally sent it.
And you could do the same thing with like the supplemental essay questions. You could send those to the writing center as well. Are there any other questions over personal statements? Okay. Moving on. So this is the next section in PTCAS, your program materials. So this is actually like the school specific section. So you'll see like this is from Eric's presentation actually, but he applied to 11 schools, which is crazy. But that number just depends on how many schools you're applying to or how many applications you've opened. So typically it'll be anywhere from like they'll give you 3 to 5 of these sections. They'll have like a home. These are like different tabs you can click on. The home just gives you like some details about their program and maybe like some admission requirements. That's just like helpful info for you. You don't actually have to enter anything in there. Questions, that's like the supplemental essay questions, which actually some schools don't even have any, which is nice, but most of them will have at least 1 or 2, maybe 3. Yeah. We've got a slide on that. Documents, a lot of schools require either a resume or a cover letter, which hopefully you already have like a resume. Maybe you just have to update it. But the next is references. That's where you submit your letter of recommendations. And then also prerequisites, which is where you can see what prereqs you need. Oh, but actually, you can only complete this once your transcripts are submitted and verified. So that's why you want to submit those transcripts early. These are just some example supplemental questions. I'm not going to read any of these, but it just gives you an idea of what they might look like. And this is also where I would recommend, like, if you create your own PTCAS account, you can go look at the schools you want to apply to and see what supplemental essays they have. And most likely, even though it's going to reset like next cycle, I would expect a lot of the schools probably use the same questions or very similar. So you wouldn't want to start these early, but this is just an idea of what they might look like. Oh, and the one thing I want to point out, I put the character max next to each of these. So it's pretty standard is going to be like 2,000. But like this last one, 9,999 characters. But that's like several pages long. You do not need to write that. And like, please don't. Like, I was talking to Miss Bravo about this, and basically she told me, write as much as you need to feel like you get your point across, which might just be like, maybe one or two paragraphs or something like that. But this is not like they give you this character max, but it's not like you need to actually get close to that.
It's also another person behind the screen, so like they probably could be like, bro, why does this person write this much?
Yeah.
So don't write that much.
Now, I would say for the personal statement, I did try to get pretty close to that character limit of 4,500, just because you wouldn't want it to be like only half a page long. But it's not like it has to be within like 10 words or anything. Like it can be just anywhere probably above 4,000 is what I would strive for there.
If you are going to answer the questions though, write them on a Google Doc, not in PTCAS, because it's going to restart. You're going to lose all your progress.
Documents. So this is like your resume or cover letter that a lot of schools ask for. I'm not going to cover this super in depth because hopefully you guys already have a resume by now, but I did link this presentation that Hudson, our president, put together earlier this semester when we had a resume night. So that's this, the link on the left side there. You can go check out his presentation. I would definitely recommend it. It was like very informative. He went over resumes and also a CV, which is not a cover letter, but if you ever need to write a CV, he has some good info there. And then there's also another resource on the right, bottom right, that is from the Career Center. They have good resume and also cover letter tips if you want to look at those. And another thing about the Career Center is that you can also submit your resume through them and get basically like immediate feedback. So that's something seems pretty simple to do. That's like a helpful resource we have here being at A&M. So I would take advantage of that and just see if it has any feedback for you. Now, letter of recommendation. So most schools are going to require 3. That's going to be typically 2 from an actual licensed PT, not a PTA, because that won't count. And then the standard is just 1 from a professor, but it doesn't have to be from a professor. It could also be from an employer or supervisor or someone that knows you well enough that they could write a good essay about you, but they can't be like related to you or anything. And then some schools do allow you to submit additional letters, which is what I kind of put here at the bottom just to show you guys. So like UNT, and this is also what it looks like in PTCAS, just so you guys know. UNT, they require 2 and they only allow 2 to be submitted. So you basically, even if you get more than 2, you're going to want to try and pick your 2 best ones. It'll probably both be from PTs. But then on the other hand, TWU, they require 3, but then they allow 10 to be submitted. But please do not go out of your way and get 10 letters, because actually I would advise against it. And because that's also that's what Miss Bravo told me, is that there's not really a need. And also our presenter from St. Augustine earlier this semester, he told us not to go above the requirement because his words were that it's like going against their instructions, which that doesn't seem like a very good reason to me. But Miss Bravo told me that if you're on the admissions team and you have to go through like even like 5 rec letters, that's just more that they have to read. And it's most likely not helping you out in any way.
Unless they're like golden rec letters, like If it's gonna help you, if you know, like me and them, like me and this professor, we're tight, then do it, But if y'all are not, don't. Let's just hit the three.
Yeah, all I would say is just go for what they require, and then that should be good enough. Just pick your best ones. But you want to make sure that they are strong letters.
Also, ask them right now, like not right now, but like ask them like soon because once the application opens, they're busy and they're looking at patients and stuff like that. So you want to have them like a heads up. And then on PTCAS, you're gonna be able to set a deadline, right? So like some people set the deadline as like June 30th. Some people set it as like July 31st, And so they're gonna see the deadline. So and then just remind them, help them out. Send them email to be answered.
Yeah.
Question?
You go to a box. What do you recommend, like, bringing up the one?
Bring it up to them. I would hope you would have a relationship so they would know you, like at least your name, right? I had a rec letter from Dr. Kennedy as well, right? And so I was like, hey, Dr. Kennedy, I'm going to PT school this summer, or I'm applying to PT school this summer, right? And I just feel like we've had a great relationship. Would you mind writing me a rec letter? I just feel like that would be really helpful, and I would appreciate it a lot. And she was like, yeah, for sure, for sure. And they want to help you, like PTs, professors. I don't know so much about employers, right? But like if you have a strong relationship with them, they want to help you out. So all you got to do is just like ask, and it's a little nerve-wracking at first because it's like, oh, I don't want to be a burden, right? But just send it like they want to help you. They're investing in you and they want to see you succeed. So.
Yeah, I think we're going to talk a little more in the next slide, but just to add on to that, typically it's like the first thing, either let's say if you're emailing them, because maybe you can't talk to them in person if they're like a PT you shadowed back in your hometown or something, either email them or if you want to ask in person, that's great too. You want to make sure that they say yes. And then once they do, to help them out, what you can do is send them your resume. And if you have your personal statement written, you can send that as well. That'd be helpful. Or just by the time once you finish your personal statement, if you want to send that to them, that'd be great. And you can ask them if you want to send your transcript, you can. I don't think that would really help them all that much, but that's an option. For Dr. Kennedy, I told her I would send her like the poster I made for that class just to kind of show her the work I did. But those are the main things. Resume. If you want to also like kind of talk about yourself a little bit, and especially like I have one of my rec letters is from a PT I shadowed like after freshman year, and so it's been several years since I've really talked to her. Or yes, and I've obviously accomplished a lot more since then. So I emailed her like, oh, these are some of the things I've done since the last time we spoke. And so if you want to kind of highlight maybe some of these characteristics that I feel like I have are like strong characteristics, you can sort of like help them along the writing process there. So in PTCAS, you hit this request button and you have to enter in their information. So they're gonna receive an email from PTCAS where they go in and submit their letter. You will have to make this request for each school. I'm not sure if they're gonna get spammed with notifications there, but they will only have to fill out one form, and then it should go out to all those schools. And something else that's important is you will not be able to see what they wrote. There's like pretty sure a button you have to click. It's like, I waive my rights to see the document or something.
There's click that every time because
yeah. But that's why you want to make sure, actually, when you're first asking for a rec letter, I would specifically ask if they're willing to write you a strong letter, because that gives them more of an out. If they don't feel like they know you very well, maybe they'll say no, and that's honestly probably better for you because you don't want someone to write just a generic letter. You want to make sure you have a strong relationship with them. And then just some more tips like we were talking about. You want to make sure it's a strong letter. In terms of the timing of it, at the very least, you want to give them a month in advance, but preferably longer. So I asked mine just a couple of weeks ago in April, but I am still waiting on one because I'm going to ask my inpatient shadowing physical therapist. But you do want to give them a deadline. That's going to be important. Otherwise, they might just keep procrastinating it. Like I said, I'm trying to be ambitious with how quickly I'm going to submit my application. So my deadline was just like 2 weeks after it opened, but probably a more reasonable deadline is going to be like maybe July 1st. It just depends on when you ask them, actually. Maybe like late July, mid-July, something like that. But if you ask them like now, you can make that deadline a little earlier because they will still have plenty of time to write it. And then, as I was saying, provide them with like your resume because they won't know all the things you've accomplished. And if you want to go above and beyond, like if you already have it written, send them your personal statement. And then you can ask them to highlight certain characteristics that you're proud of, or like tell them what you gained from your experience with them. And then definitely after they do submit the letter, make sure to show your appreciation, send them a thank you note, whatnot.
I have a friend who, after everyone, he got a letter of rec. He went and bought them like donuts. You don't have to do that, but just show your appreciation, you know? I didn't do that.
Are there any other questions over letter of recommendations? All right. Now, here are the prerequisites. I'm not going to go through this list. Hopefully, you guys know most of these by now because it's mostly the same for every school. But I do want to point out this handout. Well, one, it's linked here at the bottom, so should be able to find it pretty easily. But I would definitely recommend this OPSA website. That is the official Office of Professional School of Advising. And you click under the PT tab. They have several different handouts you can look at. This is probably the most helpful one. There's actually a couple more pages to this handout that I recommend you check out if you haven't seen this already. But it's just some really good information about the PT schools in Texas. I'm trying to think the other documents they have. They have some like volunteering opportunities locally. They have just like some statistics about A&M applicants. So I want to say it's like around, this was from a couple years ago, but it's like 60% of Aggie applicants typically get accepted, which is, I would assume, much higher than other schools, or at least a little bit higher. But I would check out that OPSA website. They have some helpful stuff on there.
They say it doesn't matter where you get your degree. That's what they say. But the A&M behind your degree helps. If you got your physics at like Texas Western or Western Texas College, they don't really care about that. But like having your KNES or whatever degree you're in from A&M and like gives you that leg up.
Yeah, a lot of presenters come out and tell us that they really like to see A&M applicants because they know our A&P is really tough. So if you can do well in that really looks good. And they know just the overall rigor of A&M classes are fairly difficult. So they know if you can do well at A&M, you can most likely do well in PT school. Another question. What is it? Stats?
You should wait, what year are you? Okay, you should email all the schools you're interested in and be like, hey, this is my stats course. Is this transferable or is this like good enough to count as stats? If that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah,
That'll probably count.
But just email them just for sure and plus if you email them, it shows like, oh, this person's proactive. You know what I mean? That's what happened whenever I was like, hey, what about my GRE scores? So yeah.
Yeah, you can email or call. I want to say for statistics, I think a lot of them probably do transfer. I want to say there's some sort of like certain topics they want it to cover. I think it's like ANOVA is one of them. Yeah. Okay, I would assume that probably counts, but it's a good idea to double check with the schools. Or maybe like the pre-PT advisor might know that information. But just another thing about this sheet, if you look at like the right column where it has other, that's where you can see like different schools might have like one additional prereq or something like that. And then it was cut off here, but if you click on the actual handout, you can read like when it says like C ASU note or whatever, just for more information there. All right. Now, interviews. I'm definitely gonna ask you about your interview experience because I haven't gone about that yet. But just real quick, every school's interview process is different, but they're usually consistent of the same structure. It's typically going to be a group interview with like 3 or 4 other applicants. They'll probably most likely have a one-on-one interview. They'll usually give you a tour of the campus if you're in person, and then also like a presentation about what the school has to offer. And I have also heard some schools ask you to write like a short essay, maybe like 30-minute timed essay or something like that. Which that doesn't sound very fun to me, but it's part of the process. And then virtual, some schools, especially if you're doing like out of state schools, well, actually, do all schools offer virtual interviews if you need
No, not all schools.
Not all of them.
I applied to Angelo State. They made me drive 5 hours out there. So, but schools that are like Duke and schools that are a little bit more prestigious, right? They'll offer virtual, like Miami will offer virtual, stuff like that.
Yeah, so if they do offer virtual interviews, it should be similar structure. You'll probably just go into a breakout room for like your individual interview and even like your group interview. Um, but obviously, standard interview tips, you want to be calm and appear confident. You definitely want to practice your interview skills beforehand and prepare. There's going to be certain questions they ask you, like why you want to go into PT. They'll probably ask you strength and weakness. You do definitely want to research the staff, the school's mission statement, and what makes their program unique. Because if you can talk about why you're applying to that school specifically, that's going to help you out. And they might even like ask you questions about it. But knowing the mission statement, that's going to look really good. I know, like, if you guys don't know Eric, he was the former director of finance a couple of years ago, and he actually made a presentation like this, which is what inspired me to do it again. But I remember him saying that he like tried to research all the staff and like learn their names before, and like I think he used like flashcards and whatnot to try and learn their names before his interview, so that he could just walk up to them and be like, "Oh, hey, so and so," shake their hand.
So at UTSA, so it's different for every school, right? But my second interviewer had 4 professors. My second interviewer, her name was, let me see if I can pronounce it right, Subramanikrishna or something like that, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, Professor Subramanikrishna. And she was like, what? Right? So she was like really like impressed. And so I'm pretty sure she remembered me from that. But yeah, learn their names, learn what they do.
Yeah.
She was really into Parkinson's disease. So I was like, oh, I read this about you. I also did this for Dr. Kennedy. So that really helped.
You found that.
Creepy? Nah.
Because like you can find their information online. So
yeah, they're more impressed than anything. But yeah, I would say mock interviews. I didn't use the Career Center. I used ChatGPT. Like how you can like talk to it, right? Everywhere I went, like I was like always talking to ChatGPT. I was like, look, I'm about to go to my interview in like a couple hours. Just give me questions. And so like on my drive to different interviews, I would have ChatGPT ask me questions. And like if they asked me a question that I didn't know how to answer, I'd be like, what do I say? And they kind of helped me like formulate like with my actual values and stuff, right? But they helped me formulate ideas. And so it was cool. But ChatGPT is really helpful.
for sure.
Yeah, because you can talk to it.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I know they'll send in different, like UTSA, I think they sent in their first round of interviews like 2 weeks after the application deadline. Sometimes they do like a month, but it's kind of like getting accepted into school. Like they'll put you on a wait list. You won't know you're on the wait list until people are like, I don't want to go to the interview, and then they'll offer you a spot. You know what I mean? So they'll do like different rounds, like rolling admissions. And so that's how that would work.
But I think typically interviews might start like November is that what you say? November, December?
November, December, yeah.
Probably still have some in the spring as well.
Some people had it September, some people, yeah.
One quick note, TWU does not have interviews. So you can expect a decision email in November or December, which I think is typically faster than other schools because obviously they don't have interviews.
I was super nervous for my first interview. I completely bombed it. Um, but I did take like a little notepad. So they have a different, what is it? They'll show you like what their school has to offer, right? I wrote down questions. I wrote down things that they said. And so like per chance, if I got the person who was talking and I had a note on them, I would ask them a question. You know what I mean? So that really helped me get my thoughts in order. But try your best to be calm, fake it till you make it. But like don't fake your answers, but like fake your confidence. You know what I mean?
And one more quick note about researching the staff. If let's say you do have like a specific interest, if you want to go in, if you like are interested in like neuro or whatever, if you can find a staff member that like specializes in that and then ask them like a specific question, that would look really good. Like that would show your interest and they would probably really think that was pretty cool. Another thing, like he was saying, you can practice through ChatGPT for sure. You can also do a virtual mock interview through the Career Center. Um, so I would definitely recommend that. Just another way to practice. Um, oh yeah, and so that was linked here at the bottom through the Career Center. They also have some interview tips if you want to check those out. Any other questions about interviews before we move on?
No. They last maybe like 4 hours. You're not interviewing the whole time, but they last like around 4 hours. Sometimes they have food. I know my Angelo State one, while I was waiting for one of my interviews, they were playing the A&M versus TU game. And it was really sad because a lot of people were Aggies, and so we were all kind of sad together. Yeah.
Would you say that are they typically on like a Friday or like over the weekend?
Sometimes they'll be Fridays. I had one on Friday, I had one on Saturday. It just depends on the school, but they probably won't be like Monday or Tuesday. They'll be later in the week, so you can, if you miss class, it's great because you don't have to go to class. You know, you can just look.
You see Southwestern and we're not so much Health in San Antonio. They have like you all meet the night before.
Yeah, yeah. Some schools will do that.
All schools do that.
Some schools don't. Some schools don't do that. Some schools will offer like a get to know us. Like the UTSA offered one, but like only student led, so you can ask them whatever you want, which was really nice. Calm your nerves down. They had pizza. It was cool. And then the next morning I had my interview, which was really nice. But some schools, they're brutal. You just show up and do your interview. I know one school, I think it's UNT, the way they do their interview is like they'll have like a smoke screen window, right? And a door, and they'll have you line up outside the door and they'll have you pull down a tab. And you have like I think 30 seconds to look at the question. And as soon as you look at it, once the 30 seconds is up, you have to go in there and answer the question. So it's like, I don't know what type of mind games they're playing, but that's how they do it.
So how many interviews did you end up going to? Four?
I did three.
Three? Were they all like fairly similar questions?
Fairly similar questions. They have the strength and weaknesses. I know UTSA was like, why do you want to come here? What is it about UTSA? Sometimes they'll ask you about the curriculum, right? I know they asked about interprofessional practice, like how you can work with other professions to help the patient, right? And they're like, what class that we offer would help you with this? I had no idea. I just picked anatomy, right? I was like, we all know anatomy that we could help, right? But yeah, so like look at everything on their website because they can pick from anywhere. It's kind of like the cat from anatomy, right? Like they can pick any nerve. That's exactly how the interview is. So you want to like make sure you know about the school.
And that actually reminded me, my first shadowing experience, I remember learning this from the PT I shadowed. I kind of asked her like, what are the questions they'll typically ask you in the interviews? And yeah, that was one of the things is that they might ask you just about a general, like the field of PT, like knowledge about it. So one thing might be, they ask you about like direct access, which is like something that's been going on in the
Legislators.
yeah,
Legislators.
has to do with like if you need a referral from your doctor, like you get like 10 visits, I want to say, versus I think it recently got changed, so now you have more than that, which is good.
I use ChatGPT for that too. Telling you, ChatGPT just really saved me a lot. I'm not even playing.
Yeah, but you want to try and learn about what's going on like in the current events. That's what I was trying to get at. The current events in PT, because that's something they might ask you about. And that's going to be like a tricky question if you haven't looked into that. I think that's all we got about interviews. Now deciding like where to apply and also like how many schools. I said this earlier, the average applicant applies to around 5 to 6. You applied to 8.
8 schools.
I'm planning on applying to 4, maybe 5. We'll see. But actually only apply to schools that you would actually go to. Like if it's like a school you're just gonna say no to, like there's no point in wasting your money and time applying to it.
I did that. I applied to UT El Paso. I'm not going to El Paso, but I don't know why I applied there. But I really wanted to get in, so I applied everywhere, you know?
And then one thing you could consider touring the schools before you apply, but you're probably also going to get that tour during the interview. So it might be a little redundant there. But if like the campus, if that really matters to you and that's like something you want to factor in, just even like deciding where to apply, that's something you could do. But here's sort of like I put together a list of like the main considerations of like where you want to apply. The cost is going to be a pretty big one, location, and the cost also kind of goes into like public school versus private school, because private schools are like at least like 3 times more expensive. Personally, my opinion, well, I'm only like, applying to public schools, just because you're getting this pretty much the same education regardless of where you go, assuming it's like an accredited school that didn't like just open. So may as well like save you some costs there if you can. Length of a program, that's also something I'm factoring in, just because most schools are going to be like your standard 3 years, 36 months, but there are, I want to say like the 3 schools that I'm applying, at least 3 of the schools I'm applying to, UT Southwestern, they are the fastest public school. They are only 31 months. So if you can graduate PT school like 5 months sooner and start making income 5 months sooner, that's just like something else to consider financially. The other 2 schools that are a little bit faster they're all in Dallas. So it's UNT is 33 months, and then TWU is also 33 months compared to that 36. And so that's something that I thought made them a little more desirable for me. Although you also want to look at the start date. Some schools start in the summer, some in the fall. There's also some private schools that start in the spring, which there's one of the handouts earlier in this presentation on the OPSA website. The first page of that I linked is actually where you can look at the start dates of all the schools there. So that's helpful. Another consideration, you could look at their graduation and the NPTE pass rates. Most schools that you've heard of are going to be like fairly high, like 95% or higher, which is good. But if they do have below 90%, that's maybe not the best school. But a lot of schools have like 100% or 99%. So to me, this isn't a huge factor, just because they're all going to give you a good education. And then accreditation, they're only not going to be accredited if they're like a new school, brand new school that's just opening. Like I think we had one presenter this semester that they actually weren't accredited just because they were new. So you probably want to avoid those if you can, just because they're still developing their program.
Accreditation basically is like, if you're accredited, you can take the exam. If you're not accredited, you can't take the exam, the licensure exam. So you want to go to an accredited university. Yeah,
which most schools are. So, and then also you can try and look into their clinical rotation system. This is typically what you do in your 3rd year of PT school. The main thing here is whether or not you get to choose where you go or like what specialties you go into, because some schools just do like a random lottery system and they'll just put you wherever, which isn't ideal. So if you can find out that information, that might be something you want to consider. Also, if they have a pro bono clinic, which is basically where you get like how would you describe it? You get
It's like experience. It's just like an experience before your clinical rotation.
Yeah.
TSA has a neuro pro bono clinic, which I kind of am interested in neuro. And so I was like, if I have access to this whenever I want, this would be a good education that I would want to go to. You know what I mean? So some schools have some schools don't, but something new.
Yeah, it's a great way to get like hands-on experience during like your first and second years of PT school. And then reputation, this is something where you're probably gonna have to like reach out to current students that are there. I think you could probably just like DM them on Instagram, like their Instagram page, and they'd probably give you a good response there. Just ask them like, what would you say the culture is like within your cohort, or also like kind of like what's the reputation of the school. What I would say here, I want to say TWU is more like research based because I think they might require research. But then also with TW not having interviews, their average GPA is way higher. It's like a 3.9 compared to most schools, probably like 3.6 or something like that. So like something I'm thinking is maybe they're a little more like possibly like egotistical or something like I don't know if that's true or not. So that's where like you would want to talk to like a current student and see like are these students more competitive and is it sort of like less friendly in a way? But I would imagine most cohorts are going to have a great reputation. You're going to get along just fine.
Yeah, want to know the reason I chose UTSA? Cost. I'm gonna live at home. That's a huge, like a lot of people just look at the tuition, right? And they're like, oh, 50,000 versus 150, public versus private. But then you got to think about cost of living, right? So $800 for rent times 12, that's about 9,600, right? And then times 3, that's like $30,000 just to like have a bed and some walls, right? And so you want to think about, do I want to go back home? I'm living at home, so I'm saving some money. But even at that, I calculated it out, 30,000 just for like gas, food, helping out my mom a little bit, you know, with rent and stuff like that. So you want to, cost was a huge one for me. Reputation of the cohort, they have like birthday chair, social chair, service chair, and everyone kind of feels like a family. And so that was cool. Like it felt like a college vibe still. Like I was gonna have some type of social life still. So that's why I went to UTSA.
And then the last one here is prerequisites. You just want to make sure that you have all the prereqs completed because if you're missing even just one, your application won't even get considered. It just gets denied pretty much immediately. So you want to make sure that you've met all those requirements. Yeah, that's all. And then this here is just another helpful resource I found. It's on the APTA website, but it's linked here. So this basically has information over all the PT schools in the US, and you can just look at it. It has a long list. If you want to look at like the GRE codes, comparison by GPA, total cost, that's another good one. Their observation requirements. And so that's actually where I got some of this information from this presentation, just by going through these links here. And then I just provided, this is like an estimated cost breakdown. Specifically, this slide is for one application. And what you'll find is it's going to range a considerable amount. Your first application is $170, and then each additional one is $70. And then some schools have like a second application fee that's typically around $50.
Some of them, one of them was 75.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And then 3 second application fees.
Okay, so yeah, 3 out of 8. And then sending your GRE scores. If you guys use the free score report I was mentioning earlier, your first 4 will be free. So definitely do that. It'll save you $160, but then each one is $40. So you got to consider that. And then transcripts, probably going to be 10 to 20 per transcript. You also got to think about if you went to a community college, that's going to be another transcript you have to send and whatnot. And that's per school. So that's going to add up.
I think I went to like, I want to say 8 or 9 different colleges because I did dual credit on ramps and stuff like that, which costs a lot of money for the transcripts. And then sometimes with the second application, they'll want you to send it to PTCAS and to them, which is like, why? Like you already have it, right? But I spent like maybe $80 on PTCAS and then like another 160 sending it to like multiple schools. So factor that in as well.
So most likely you'll probably spend at the minimum, I would say probably 100, but then maybe up to like $200 per application. It's just going to depend. Then here's another example on the left is if you say you apply to 3 applications, so you pay 310 in application fees. Let's say one of them had a second application, that'd be $50. And then if you use your free GRE score sends, you still pay 0 there. And then transcripts at the minimum, you pay probably 30. So you're looking at even just 3 applications, that's like $400. And it gets just much higher the more schools you apply to. So if you apply to 8, go through here, let's say you 660 in application fees. So let's say 3 of them had another additional application, like that's what Andrew had to pay, probably 150, 175. If you have to pay for 4 additional score sends, that's 160, and then transcripts probably at least 80. So that's 8 applications, at least $1,000.
Yeah.
He was saying you paid
I paid like
1,500.
1300 around there, just because I have more transcripts and stuff. But it's pretty expensive. I'm glad I got in, but just be wise about what you're doing.
Yeah, and you probably want to start budgeting and saving money now if you know that you're paying out of pocket for this.
I did 8 because I was scared I wasn't gonna get in. Like y'all are a lot more capable than you think. I remember when I was applying, they're like, you don't need to apply to that much. Like actually last year's presentation, Eric was like, oh, I applied to 11. I was like, I'm gonna apply to 8. And I told Nandy, he was sitting right next to me. He's like, don't do it. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it, bro. I don't want to take a gap year, right? Which if you're taking a gap year, it's not bad. But I didn't want to do it. So I was like, I'm gonna apply to as many as I can. I didn't need to. So yeah.
All right. And then this is like an ideal timeline if all the stars align. So let's say you find out about PT Society freshman year, you join, that's great. Start learning all this now and start being proactive. You can start researching the schools and coming to our meetings to learn about the schools. And ideally, you start your shadowing maybe like that summer. Probably just like basic outpatient shadowing. Sophomore year, let's say you take the GRE, just knock that out of the way. Ideally, you start applying for leadership positions. And then if you can, get your inpatient shadowing done. And then junior year, I talked about this earlier, definitely try to take Kines 307 with Dr. Kennedy in person so you can do that student fighter project, which is a really cool experience. Looks really good. And then this is where it's most likely most of you are all juniors, so it's specifically like the semester before the summer, like spring semester, where you're going to be the busiest. That's where you're going to be asking for rec letters, writing your personal statement, or this might also be like the start of the summer. You write your personal statement, and then they'll say you get like your specialty interest shadowing, like neuro or sports or whatever it may be. And then senior year is when you're going to have your interviews, your acceptance decisions, and then you will have to find housing. Let's say you have a summer start date and you're graduating in May, you also start in May. So it's a really quick turnaround of when, especially like depending on when you find out you got accepted, you have to find housing really quick. It can definitely be really stressful.
It's stressful. Luckily I'm living with my mom, right? But I start May 18th and I graduate May 8th. So that's 10 days in between when I graduate and I start. Some people don't get notified that they're actually accepted until like May 17th, right? I know I heard a story about someone who did that. So yeah, excuse me. Someone that happened to at UTSA, and he had to go stay with like a professor for like 2 months until he found his own apartment, which is really nice of them, to do that. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And obviously, like you don't have to follow this timeline. Especially like let's say you switch and decide you want to do PT later on, like even like junior year, like Andrew, you're just gonna have to compress a little more and probably put some more hours in, like junior year, especially. But if you can be proactive and spread it out, that's just only gonna help you out, and you're gonna thank yourself later. So then coming to a close here, these are the key takeaways. The main one, I want all of you to go make your PTCAS account tonight or like soon, so that you can go look into the application process and answer a lot of questions you're going to have. And then obviously you guys know this, but you want to prioritize your GPA, seek out a variety of experiences, whether that's shadowing, leadership, research, to really make yourself a well-rounded applicant. And then definitely want to build strong relationships with all the PTs you shadow and probably at least one professor. And then definitely start your application early because you guys might know this, but PT schools typically have rolling admissions. So the earlier you apply, the better your chances are. That's why I'm trying to be so ambitious and apply like after just a couple of weeks of it opening.
Which I didn't send my application until September, which is like really late, because August is a little later. Like you would want to do it before August. Like July is like perfect time, early August. I didn't do mine till early September just because I was taking classes and the way things worked out. So if that is the case, take a breath, you'll be fine, but try to be proactive and get it as early as you can. Because if your application is the first one they see, they're like, oh, this person's cool. Let's get him, if he has a 3.7. But if they get someone with a 4.0 right next after you, you want to be before those people.
Yeah, the way I think about it was like they're going to start out, say like 50 spots open. So if you apply early, you just got to be like kind of top 50 in a way, but then it narrows down later on. Let's say they have 10 spots. Now you have to be top 10 versus top 50. It doesn't exactly work that way, but
yeah,
the less spots they have, probably the more selective they're going to be. And also like the more people you're competing against at that point. So you want to start your application early. That's definitely what I've done. Like if you can write your personal statement a couple months ahead of time, or even just the month of May is a great time to do it because you'll be done with classes, and you should have some more time there. And then you can also submit your transcripts and GRE scores early if you want, because PTCAS will save those, and then they should be ready to go once the cycle opens. And then definitely save yourself $160 by utilizing the 4 free score reports when you take your GRE. But all that being said, like, let's say you don't get in your first time, the world is not going to end. Like, all you have to do is take a gap year, retake some classes, maybe get some more shadowing experience, try and strengthen your weak points, and you can definitely reapply and get in your second time just fine. Any other takeaways?
be proactive. Start early. Put emotion into what you're doing. Do it because all y'all care about it, but like show them that you care about it. Don't just talk about it. But yeah, is that everything?
Yeah. So then with that, this is the QR code. You guys can scan it to get your point for today.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
There's no dumb questions either.
Well, actually, before that, best of luck with your application. You guys should be proud of the work you put in. But yeah, we can go on to questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording here.